For as long as Earth First has existed as a movement, the Earth First Journal has served as its voice. An independent, collectively run print magazine and website, the Earth First Journal acts as the public face of the movement, representing Earth Firsters through movement updates, discourse, debates, poetry, art, tactical discussions, and more. I spoke with two people involved with the Earth First Journal collective, one who's currently a member, the other a former editor, to learn about what the Earth First Journal is and why they think it's an important part of the movement.
My name is Madeline. I'm currently an Earth First Journal collective member, and I write and organize and raise kids in Appalachian, Ohio.
My name is Panayoti Cholkis, and I live and also raise kids in South Florida, Palm Beach County, Florida. And I first short-termed as an editor in 2006, and then continued as a full-time editor starting in 2009 to about 2013 or 2014.
So what is the Earth First Journal?
I started reading the journal probably 1997. Through that time, I think the journal has meant different things and served different roles. Like pre-digital media, it was a primary source of information 8 times a year to what actions were happening, where you could plug in, report backs from those actions, who was in jail and how you could write them letters. That's pretty much always been, or for the bulk of the time the journal has existed, those components have been pieces of it. I think in more recent times, the journal has become a less ephemeral way to document the movement than just the digital media scrolling kind of, like scrolling headlines. So I think, it captures art and photography and poetry and narrative kind of storytelling for the movement. That's what I think the Earth First Journal provides to the direct action, biocentric environmental movement.
How long has the journal been around? Can you give me a brief history of some of the background?
Somewhere in late 1979, 1980, the Earth First movement was born. Like the mythology is like in the back of someone's van, Mike Rozelle or Dave Foreman or something. They talked about this idea of a environmental direct action movement. And they started the journal in tandems, a couple photocopied pages, like kind of handwritten notes about a protest movement, I think paralleling some of the other direct action oriented movements of the time, coming out of the 70s. Anti-nuke movement, American Indian movement, the Black Power movement, looking at some of those traditions and building grassroots direct action kind of community and trying to apply that into the environmental movement.
Why have the journal? What's the value of an independent media project like that?
It sort of mirrors and parallels a lot of the way Earth First is, which it's not an organization. It's like what we say, there's no Earth First, there are only Earth Firsters. And so I think that the journal has always sort of reflected the kinds of projects and relationships and actions that Earth Firsters have, are working on, or feel like are important. Our first allegiance is to people who are doing direct action right now and out there throwing down right now, making projects happen right now. And it's not that we don't appreciate movement elders and past ways that Earth First has operated. But it's not a museum piece. It's not an archive piece. It's about active movement work. And because Earth First is not an organization, and it's not a like recruiting body, and there's no membership, I think what the journal reflects are a lot of the solidarity type things we do. People we publish in the journal don't necessarily define themselves as Earth Firsters, but they want to be in relationship with us enough to be published in the journal. And we like to use the journal as a chance to uplift people's direct action, no compromise, biocentric and decolonial projects across Turtle Island. That, I think, is the sort of like first goal right now of the current collective. We're showing who we are by the relationships we have, the people that we have trust with, and the people that we fight with and throw down with, the people that we have conflict with, and keep it moving. And I think that that type of media, I think the journal reflects that. And I do think that in our movements, sometimes we don't have enough independent media that just reflects like these practical projects continue, these fights continue, despite anything else that is going on. You can see that in the journal pages, like the evolution of this very explicit and continuing messy struggle for how we want this movement to be. And I'd prefer to find my political home and then as a writer, find my editorial home in a place where the seams are showing in that way, as opposed to a place that kind of tries to sanitize that conversation and those necessary struggles that our movements need.
People do hash out and argue with each other, and I think in a way that really has been a part of the evolution, or documents the evolutionary process that Madeline's referring to, that of the movement growing and changing and shifting with the people that are present. And because the journal documented it, I think we still know those stories and got put into books. And
One reason I was attracted to the project of becoming part of the Journal Collective is that I think that in this community, I see people doing really incredible things, just very action-oriented, and not necessarily very interested in representing themselves. And I see a huge gap between people who are really comfortable representing themselves and people who are actually fucking getting shit done and like doing this fucking shit every day. And they don't have the fucking time. And they'd also, a lot of people, you know, I know this as someone who's like been an English teacher and stuff, like people are very self-conscious about writing. It's really vulnerable to put yourself out there that way. And I like being in a position of asking people to represent this fucking cool ass shit they're doing, just so that there isn't a situation where the people who are already really confident writers are the ones who are like, yeah, sure, I'd love to write something, when actually a lot of people that we want to hear from maybe aren't the kind of people who also think of themselves as someone who should be published. That is something I love about being in the collective right now.
The journal exists historically and currently as a print magazine. Why have print media in 2024?
It's a lot easier for people, incarcerated people, to access print media. And also, I mean, I live in Appalachia. I think there's a lot of assumptions about online accessibility that overlooks and erases a lot of rural people and a lot of incarcerated people. So I don't think and a lot of public library users. And I think there's a real place for print media just on a practical level. And also, I just want to say that I also have been pretty passionate about making sure it's free and online. We post it online at the same time we publish the print edition, but none of our moves to making it more digital has ever come at the expense of the print edition. We still feel like the print edition is really important.
I think publishing the magazine is the right thing to do because of its longevity and the likelihood that it's going to stick around way beyond social media headline, especially for long form content, for interviews, for analysis or reflections, or as good as social media is for just kind of getting a snapshot of what's going on around you, around the world. It's a very different experience than reading someone's like firsthand report of what they witnessed or experienced or participated in during an action. And those things don't tend to get that kind of traction on the internet, on social media.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be for everyone, but again, the Earth First Journal is part of a living movement, and it's has utility for people who are part of a living movement. And so for us, that means that a lot of times for security reasons, and also sometimes values-based reasons, people don't want to be totally plugged in all the time, and people don't want to be just looking at things on their phones all the time. And a great example is at this gathering, we don't want to have phones out, and people have been asked not to have their phones out, but everybody's like lying around everywhere reading the issues of the journal. And a lot of frontliners go places where they can't charge their phone, they're not using their fucking phone all the time, they're not online all the time, they don't want to be close to their tech and the internet and plugged in all the time. And so I think that the journal reflects, I think, any print media and books too. And anyone who's been on the inside knows how important books are, and just the idea of like, oh, we don't need books anymore. All we need is everything to be on this one format. It doesn't actually work for as many people as I think the mass culture would have us believe.
Where can people find info about the journal?
We have an Instagram account. There's Twitter.
There's a Facebook account if you're like old and washed up and use Facebook like I do. And then there's the website, earthfirstjournal.news. You can find out how to subscribe and support from there.
And the website also has like our Proton mail address, so there's ways to try to get more involved or submit work. We love reading people's work, and we'll get back to you. We'll try to get back to you. So there's a lot of ways to be in touch.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, check out all of our coverage from the 2024 Earth First Gathering at unicornriot.ninja.